We have actually Zoom meeting on budget 2022 and an outlook. We have a eminent speaker, senior most double qualified professional. He is a CMA and CA Dendukuri Zitendra, who is a senior practicing cost accountant and registered valuer, insolvency professional, who has passion for teaching and trained and guided many youngsters in their career building. And he always wants to connect with the commerce and management students. Today, he is going to enlighten us on Union Budget 2022 and the outlook. And we have CMA Sri Krishnan and Narayan Garu to introduce the speaker. Sir, now I request Sri EMA Krishnan Garu to introduce the speaker, please.
Thank you, Prakash. Good morning, friends. I have the privilege of introducing the speaker, Zitendra Garu. I am a close associate of Zitendra in the professional friend, as also I am his friend, also a neighbor. So we meet regularly and discuss various issues and all. So let me introduce the speaker. So I have the privilege of introducing him. Zitendra Rao is a practicing cost accountant based in Hyderabad. His roots are from a remote village, Kunavaram, that is near the popular town of Bhadrachalam. He qualified CMA in the year 1988 and a CA in 1991. He is an All India rank holder, 33rd rank holder in the final exam of ICWA in 1988. With a flair for cost management, he chooses cost audit and management audit as his line of consultancy since May 2003, after serving the industry for nearly 16 years in companies like Alwyn, NRB Bearing, and CNK Management. He is also a qualified diploma in Information System Audit and Control of the Institute of Cost Accountants of India. He is also a registered insolvency professional with Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board of India, also a registered with Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board of India as valuer of the assets class, securities and financial assets. He graduated in commerce from Sri Venkateshwara University in Tirupati. As a practitioner for the last 19 years, he has understood the issues involved in electricity, pharma, cement, aluminium, steel, chemical, textile. I can go on telling you. He has got wide and varied experience in costing, setting up of costing systems, and also in cost audit. He has delivered special sessions on costing and other subjects of finance in various forums, both online and offline. He has contributed many articles in the fields of cost management. He is also a recipient of IPA Proficiency Award for the year 2014 for the contributions to the cost management profession. He was a member of the Southern India Regional Council of India, SIRC we call it, of the Institute of Cost Accountants of India for the period 2015 to 2019. Presently, actively contributing on agri-cost management aspects in the national level, agricultural task force constituted by the Institute of Cost Accountants of India. Agri-cost management, this is a new field where cost management is entering in the areas of agriculture and allied agricultural services. He took up the mission to reach to young learners in the field of commerce on topics like what is costing, agricultural costing, excellence through management, business strategies, corporate development, compliance to tax laws, with an objective to create interest in the young minds towards these topics. He has a passion towards cost management, and also he loves to address students especially. And with this, I would add, before handing over to Zitendra, I would like to tell you one thing is that you are all youngsters who should aspire. He should be an inspiration to you for in your profession. You should not be satisfied with what you are. You should try to aspire to get more professional courses, more professional degrees. And there is no age for learning. And as you have seen from his credentials, that even at this age, he is now 60. He is updating himself. Of course, I am also elder to him. So you youngsters, if you want to be competitive and to be really come up in the profession of accountancy, you have to update your knowledge. And you should update your knowledge not only in accounting, it also to be in other areas. And budget is one area which Mr. Zitendra will be speaking about. I don't want to talk anything about that because you will have a very good session from him. So over to Zitendra. Thank you very much for hearing.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Krishnan, for the kind words. Friends, very good morning. Sharadindu Samakare Parabrahma Swarupini Vasarapeta Nalaye Saraswati Namostuti. I am very happy that the institution that has given me a sort of recognition way back in 2014 has given me this opportunity to share some of my thoughts with my young friends on budget 2022. Friends, you all know very well, budget is 20-day-old news. Jovially, people keep saying today's newspaper is tomorrow's waste paper. But the budget is something that has got the sanctity for the whole year coming ahead. Okay. So therefore, every day you keep reading the budget document, you come to know something that is of new essence that you need to understand. Now, having said that, let me just share my screen. I'm not going to give you any PowerPoint presentation, but I have made a hand note because in the given time of just 1 hour, whatever the best possible inputs that I can put into your thought process, being young minds. I know there are some limitations from your side. I don't want you to really burden your thought process with that of the what you call heavy stuff related to the budget. But I have to ensure that at the end of my presentation, you carry some thought process that would be helping you in years to come, not just only for this year of 2022. With that objective, I am now sharing my screen. So can somebody confirm, sir, whether it is
yes,
visible and all or not?
So yes, sir. It's okay.
Oh, great. So friends, what is in the budget? My suggestion at the outset to my young friends is that you should browse at this particular domain, indiabudget.gov.in. And if you go to that website, you will have many papers that are to be presented. You will have one document called Key to Budget document, which spells about the whole process of budgeting exercise. It will give you an idea as to what is there as a part of the annual ritual that the central government proposes to do in the budget. And after, we all know in the management jargon, budget is nothing but a kind of a planning. So what is planning? Planning is a trap laid down to capture the future. No, the future for this plan that is being laid is year 2022-23. That's all. So what is the plan that you have for the year 2022 and 23? That is going to be captured. Just a minute. I'll just come in 1 second. Some disturbance is there from my side. Yeah. So it is a trap laid down to capture the future. This is the point you should first register in your thought process. And this plan is laid for the country as a whole, not for your individual life, not for your family, not for your state or a village, but the country as a whole. The government of India is putting a plan. It is a trap. When I say trap, don't go into the negative sense of the trap that we are actually conservating. But here, when I say trap, it is the estimated waterfall mechanism or estimated incomes and expenditure that is going to fall into your kitty. Then friends, what do you want? I mean, is it simply a document, some kind of an income and expenditure that we are going to present as a part of the budget? Certainly not. They are going to present so many number of papers. All these things you will understand if you browse at the website indiabudget.gov.in. I am aware that I am addressing to a very, entry-level professionals into the field of accountancy. Therefore, I thought I would give some briefing about the total budget aspect as such, then going into the specific proposals that were unfolded to us by Honorable Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman ji on 1st February 2022. So we need to understand what this budget is all about. It consists of many documents, as I said. It is just not a speech of Nirmala Sitharaman, or it is just not the proposal that actually carries the amendments in the proposed Income Tax Act or GST Act or Indirect Tax Act and all. There is something else for this also. And this journey starts essentially with an economic survey. All these documents you will be able to access once you browse at the website called indiabudget.gov.in. So economic survey discusses what went right or wrong for the year just concluded. That is, for the budget 2022, what went right or wrong for the financial year 21-22 is going to be discussed broadly in the economic survey report. If I may recall the 2021 budget presentation, you would have actually heard many experts talking about V-shaped recovery for the economy. We all know we were in midst of pandemic, COVID pandemic. Still, 2019-20, somewhere around September 2019 onwards, the economy really started looking up. And up till March 2021, everything seemed to be all right before the second wave actually has broken in. So there is a V-shaped recovery. That's the episode for 2019-20. But when it comes to the 2021 financial year, you would have heard many economists talking about K-shaped recovery. So they are all talking of K-shaped recovery. What is this K-shaped recovery? Because See, my submission to you people is that if you understand the backdrop, you would appreciate the need for making certain amendments to the direct taxes and indirect taxes, whereby the tax levies are, imposed on the public at large, taking care of the, welfare measures as such. So, therefore, you need to understand what is this K-shaped recovery. How does it concern? What is the role of this K-shaped recovery for India as a whole? In K-shaped recovery, generally, it is not that every industry goes up. There would be few industries, they are called bright spots, that would be going up. There would be few industries or few economies that would be going downwards. That's called dark streams. So this is a big concern. Essentially, for a country like India, where you have a combination of a formal organizations and informal or non-formal organizations, and 135 crore kind of a population, certainly we have to be concerned, because we need to balance both formal and non-formal segment. Now, what happened? You would have heard from your friends nowadays. All very structured companies, IT companies, they're doing extremely well. Their employees are getting fat salaries. On the other side, non-formal, excluding agriculture sector. I'll come to the agriculture a little later. Non-formal, excluding agriculture sector, is from unemployment as well, from the underperformance as well, financial crunch as well. This is the concern for the economy. Therefore, the K-shaped recovery is posing a lot of concerns, which actually influenced the thought process of the government, which actually made them to chalk out the budget proposal that we are going to unfold very shortly. I am sure most of you would have heard many people all these days, for the last 20 days, on budget. But as I said, keeping in mind an entry-level professional in my thought process, I have designed this particular presentation for the day, for the next 40 or 45 minutes. Now, one good news for India particularly is that agriculture has been proved to be a cushion amidst of the shock that has come to the mankind through COVID-19 pandemic. So therefore, right from 2018-19 onwards, the agricultural sector has been recording a steady growth, 2.6, 4.3, 3.6, and last year, 21-22, it has even recorded 3.9% kind of a economic growth. So this is the backdrop under which the government of India is now planning to come into the budget mechanism. Now let's understand what is this budget all about. You would have seen the TVs, Madam Nirmala Sitharaman giving a speech. So the budget exercise typically starts with a budget speech. Then she has tabled in the parliament many documents. What is the need? Now I bring back some of the basic concepts that you have mastered in your course with the Institute of Practical Accountancy. If you are to be a company needs to finalize the books of accounts, prepare balance sheet, submit to the board of directors, and submit to the shareholders who are the owners of the company. Similarly, for a document for the financial activities of the company as a whole, the owners are public at large. They are represented by the members of parliament. They actually assemble in a place called Lok Sabha. Therefore, the finance minister, who in a way we can call them as a CFO for the country as a whole. Then Prime Minister, we can address him as a CEO. Then the CFO actually first puts in certain budget proposals and takes the approval of the cabinet meeting. In the minister's cabinet meeting, it is approved something like a board of directors approving your financials. Then it is laid before the parliament for the information and approval of the public represented by the members of parliament. That is the synonym that you can draw between the budget exercise and that of the regular accounting exercise. Well, let's come back. And if you look at the budget document, it is just not the speech, as I said. There are annual financial statements. What is annual financial statements? Definitely 21, 22, they would have made a budget. They would have made an estimate that we would incur this kind of expenditure, would have received this kind of an income. Then against that expenditure, what is the status as on today? So it's called revised estimate because the year is not concluded yet. No, we are still in the month of February only. Only by 31st March 2022, financial year 21-22 gets concluded. So they need to make a revised estimate. Then is there anything went wrong here, there and all? Any extra expenditure has come in? All that kind of stuff they need to discuss in the form of the revised estimate. Then 2021 financial year already got concluded. So therefore, the actual data would have been available. So actual data for 2021, revised estimate for 21-22, and the budgeted estimate for the year 22-23. These three, columns are called basically the annual financial statements. Of course, there are certain backup documents and all that for that matter for all these things. Then the budget exercise typically has certain proposals. Government says, the government of India says, I'm going to earn so much of money, or I'm going to collect so much of money in the form of taxes, and I'm going to spend this money for on account of these things. And this is the deficit. This deficit I'm going to borrow. This is the kind of a budget proposal. When they make this kind of a proposal, they should also unfold what kind of a tax proposals that they are going to impose upon the public at large in order to collect these proceeds. That is called finance bill. So annual financial statements, then finance bill, and certain other documents, expenditure budget, receipts budget, etc., etc. And then they also put in certain action taken report, a kind of an action taken report in front of the public at large, that is the parliament. That is called implementation of a budget announcements of 2021. Here, when they made an announcement in the budget for the financial year 20 and in the financial year 21, they would have promised that they would do certain activities. They need to tell what went against that particular, estimated call that they have taken during the earlier years. This is all in nutshell about the budget document. And if I may bring in the interesting quotes of Honorable Finance Minister, she was referring to Amrit Kaal, which is nothing but we have just come, we are in the 75th year of independence. Next to 25 years is going to be very crucial. So in terms of India becoming a global, power, India already is contributing its might for the Vasudhaiva Kutumbam, for the welfare of the globe as a whole. But in the next 25 years, all the more it has got a lot of an activity to do it. Then, Honorable Finance Minister was also coining production linked incentive for certain sectors. This is nothing but a kind of an incentive where the organization is encouraged to put an industry, to promote employment, to achieve the optimal productivity there in the organization that they have actually incorporated for. Then the entire budget of this particular 2022 was focusing upon ease of doing business version 2.0. In fact, government claimed around thousands of complaints were reduced to just only a couple of thousand or 1.5 and 1.5K kind of a compliances. And then with the help of the technology, government is now contemplating to actually further ease the way of doing the business so that a person, an individual is encouraged to start an industry and then to make it successfully run for years to come, which would in turn contribute for the exchequer in the form of taxes, for the society in the form of providing employment, and become an important stakeholder and organ of the society. Then, of course, the budget 2022 was focusing upon Gati Shakti. They have got 4 pillars they have mentioned. All these things you can actually run through. If you go to the website, whatever I said, there is a website, indiabudget.gov.in. There are, the entire budget document. If you run through it, simple English. After all, 26 alphabets and 10 numerics were actually jumbled here and there. You can easily make out what is the intent of the government. It will give you very good confidence in the meets or in the talks or in the social talk that you actually encounter in the times to come. So the government was talking about promoting the MSME sector particularly because they felt this particular K-shaped recovery, whatever I was talking about, the kind of unemployment downtrend in the non-formal sector can be arrested with the promotion of MSME sector, because MSME sector builds as a bridge, acts as a bridge between the non-formal to the formal. So in the process, they contribute to the productivity. Therefore, the focus is given to the MSME segment, and they have released a separate policy document. And Madam was aptly giving references to this MSME segment focus in her budget speech as well. Another important aspect, as we have already seen, agriculture is being the backbone for Indian economy, particularly in times of a crisis. Therefore, they said the high-tech services are going to be produced to the farmers in the form of a public-private partnership mode by providing Kisan drones. You would have seen some news item. Yesterday, Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji was inaugurating 100 drones that would actually do a lot of job for the farming community, sprinkling the pesticides, or doing the soil tests, etc., etc. So with the help of the drone, the manual involvement or intervention minimizes, and the accuracy of the results, accuracy of the effort, actually the accuracy of the spread, the sprinkling of the fertilizer would be very effective, so that productivity goes up ultimately. So these are all the various references Honorable Chief Minister, Honorable Finance Minister has made in her budget speech. Then, of course, as I said, the annual financial statements were presented. Then this is the budget at a glance that was actually presented to the Lok Sabha. What does it talk about? They say we get 22.0 lakh crores as revenue receipts. After all, see, they need to have a plan. And there are some other receipts which are, all the details you can see once you look at the budget documents there. Then they are projecting an expenditure of 31.94 lakhs. And they are also projecting capital expenses. See, amidst of the pandemic, particularly when the economy is in the downturn, in order to ramp up the economy, in order to create employment opportunities, government wants to put a lot of spend on the infrastructure. Therefore, they are going to aptly focus for the capital expenses. So these capital expenses, revenue expenses put together, government wants to spend 39.44 lakh crores in the year ahead. I mean, when I say this is from the perspective of the central government only. Every state will have their own budget. Roughly, we have 29 states. Each state would again put in about a 1 lakh crores kind of a budget. So if you take 29 lakh crores thereon, 39 crores of the central government, in effect around 60 lakh crores is going to be spent by all the governments, which would actually spur the economy, which will actually create a lot of value addition in the society. In the process, these are the two terms that every accounting professional need to be aware of it. Revenue deficit and fiscal deficit. What is this revenue deficit? Revenue deficit is nothing but total expenditure, or rather total expenditure on account of the revenue minus total income on account of the revenue. Typically, if you take the synonym to our P&L account, the loss or a profit in the P&L account. There we call it as a loss or a profit because it's a commercial entity. Government is a social, is not a commercial or a profit motto. Profit is not the motto of the government of India. So therefore, they call it as a deficit. But when they say deficit, they need to fund it. No? Otherwise, see, if I have 100 rupees in my pocket and if I plan to spend 110 rupees, I have to borrow another 10 rupees from somewhere else. There only I can spend 100 rupees. Or else what I should do? I should curtail my expenditure to that of only 100 rupees. This is what precisely government also is doing. They are borrowing 16.61 lakh. This borrowal is nothing but the fiscal deficit. So now you understood the whole background for preparing the budget and what is the budget document is all about. You know very well, budget document is not just a finance proposal or the proposal with reference to direct tax and indirect tax. It has something else also. And in the process, we made small effort to understand, not that you don't know, you would have already mastered all these things like revenue deficit, fiscal deficit, when you were reading your economics in your course curriculums, etc., etc. But still, I thought I would make it more sensible to connect it to the budget proposals. See, the entire objective is to minimize the revenue deficit. Entire objective is to minimize the fiscal deficit. Because these two things would bring in some kind of a financial discipline. When there is a financial discipline, you have peace of mind. If I don't have any borrowing, if I keep spending within the limit of whatever money that I'm earning, obviously I don't have any tension. Tension is nothing but whatever target I had and minus actual, that is nothing but the tension. And then, because we are about 190 countries and all across the globe, so if you wanted to put them all the countries on some parameter, the parameters are generally GDP and all these deficiencies, whether it is the revenue deficit or the fiscal deficit, they are expressed as a percentage to that of the GDP. Now, friends, at this stage, I wanted to bring in an interesting point to your notice. I want all of you to browse after my budget speech a website called OECD.org. OECD.org. What this OECD is all about? This is an organization for economic cooperation and development. Because see, when I'm in a classroom, I need to know whether how my peers are faring. If I have not understood a problem, when my colleague has understood, when my next classmate or benchmate has understood it effectively, that there is something wrong in my perception. So I need to rectify that. So therefore, country as a whole, globe as a whole, what kind of parameters are being reflected for various countries? Those countries, where do we stand? In order to make this kind of an analysis, if you people look at this website called OECD.org, that is Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, you'd be astonishing. You would be astonishing as to what kind of a big journey that is in front of India. So as economy, developed nation, at least another 10 years down the line. Friends, now I just thought of bringing an interesting point here, very interesting point here with reference to the OECD. That is, the tax revenue, the revenue receipts for the government predominantly consists of the tax revenues, either direct taxes or indirect taxes, because they don't have any other source, no? So these tax revenues to of the GDP, whatever is the GDP, in fact, for example, our 2022-23, the GDP is estimated to be at 258 lakh crores for our country. Honorable Prime Minister is having a target of reaching 5 trillion economy in another 2 to 3 years to come. So 258 lakh crores is the GDP, and the revenue collections to that of the GDP percentage was at 9. Last year it was at 9.9% or something like that. Now it has come to, they are projecting it to be around 10.68%. Friends, if you look at the OECD.org data, the globe as a whole, the tax revenues, the gross tax revenues as a percentage to GDP is to the tune of 34%. Because of our welfare orientation, we are still confining to 9 to 10%. Thereby, the deficit economies are actually becoming a common phenomena. Therefore, we are borrowing. Therefore, we are continuing to be the developing economy. So, the is that in times to come, revenue receipts to GDP as a percentage should further grow. The growth can happen in two counts. One, either to increase the tax rates or to widen the tax base. Precisely, instead of increasing the tax rates, government wants to widen the tax base. That is what the endeavor of our Honorable Finance Minister and the Government of India. So therefore, we have now understood the background of the entire budget mechanism. Now let's come to the finance bill precisely, because we are all commerce students, we are through with accountancy. We will try to understand what exactly is there in the finance bill. The finance bill, generally, as I told you, it talks about the financial proposals of the government, by what means they will collect the taxes. For example, they may impose certain new taxes. They may abolish certain old taxes. They may give some remissions. They may alter certain existing taxes. They may ratify certain provisions, etc., etc. Then it is generally introduced immediately after the presentation of the union budget. As I said, the budget is what? The annual financial statements, revised estimate, actual for the year before, budget estimate for the next year. And this to be supported by the proposal, the intent of the government, how they have wanted to collect these tax revenues. Now, if you look at the finance bill, it has 284 pages, consisting of 125 clauses and 7 schedules thereon. Why I'm telling you these basic points, instead of talking to certain direct tax proposal, indirect tax proposal, is that I want some kind of a conceptual clarity in your thought process. What exactly is this budget exercise all about? Now, in this particular 284-page document consisting of 125 clauses and 7 schedules, you would see the finance bill dealing about provisions with reference to income tax, provisions with reference to customs, provisions with reference to GST, etc., etc. Secondly, this is the precise point again I want you people to note. See, budget means not only income tax, not only GST. Any entity, last year, if you remember, 21 budget, they brought certain amendments to Life Insurance Corporation because they were planning to divest or disinvest a portion of their stake to the public at large by asking LIC to go over a public issue. Similarly, this year, this has become a news of the month rather. What they said, there is something called digital currency. Central bank digital currency, the concept of a digital currency has been introduced. In order to introduce this, if you go to the RBI Act, currency means they have got only notes or a coins or a bullion or a gold or something like that. Now they wanted to include digital currency also as a currency, so which actually requires an amendment to the RBI Act. So they brought an amendment to the RBI Act also through the finance bill. So the clause number 124 talks about an amendment to the RBI Act, which actually talks about central bank digital currency. Other than this, they are all etc. Then another interesting aspect, my dear friends, I wanted to bring to your notice. That is, if you let me see whether I can show this to you. If I can show this, I think I'll be very happy to show this. No, I'm unable to show this to you. Okay, let me go back to my own presentation. Because if I thought I would be able to, yeah. Now let me see if I can. I don't know whether, sir, is my screen visible, sir?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Screen is being.
No, this budget document. That whatever is the URL that I opened.
No, this
only Word
the
document.
gold one only is.
Okay, great, great. Anyway, okay, sir. Okay, right. So let me. So my submission to you is that if you look at the finance bill, they would first check out various provisions. What are the various amendments to be carried on? But you should all understand, no, what is the need of this amendment? Why the government thought this amendment is to be brought over? That is given in this memorandum explaining the provisions of the finance bill. This also forms part of the finance bill. So what you should do, you should look at the 284 document, ideally up to around, I think, 200 pages or so, you have the provisions. Then the rest of the pages, each of the provision, they would give an explanation. Why this amendment is been warranted? What made the government to introduce this amendment? So this also you can, then you can really go through. Then, of course, the implementation of budget announcement. This again thing I told you, as a part of the budget document, they give the action taken plan for the budget pronouncement that they made in the previous days. So this action taken plan and then provisions incorporating the proposed collections and reasons why that provision was actually made for is forming part of the finance bill. Now, these finance bill, we have typically, there is somebody seems to have raised the hand there. Redmi Note 7, yes. I suggest that I will give about 5 minutes time at least, so that now I've got 10:43 now. Maybe another 12 minutes or 15 minutes I will conclude. Then afterwards, for 5 minutes, we can have some question answer sessions. Is it okay, Prakash Garu?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Please continue. Please. Yes.
Hello, Prakash Garu. Am I audible to you, sir?
Yes, Andy. Yes, Andy.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because somebody was raising the
not a problem.
So we will go ahead with the talk, sir.
Yes, at
so
the end we will take care of it. Yes.
Yeah, thank you. So the budget, it has got, taxes has got two kind of an element: direct taxes, indirect taxes. Direct tax means the tax that actually is being levied on us directly, and indirect tax is like income tax mainly. Okay, indirect tax is that it is levied on us only, but not directly, indirectly. As a consumer, we are paying, right from Colgate toothpaste to the Goodnight mat, or right from the soap that you buy. All the manufactured items, they are all subjected to the tax by the manufacturer, by the dealer, by the trader. But ultimately, all those people, all that value chain are entitled to collect the tax from you and me, being the ultimate consumer. We are by the end consumer, they need to pay the tax. Thus, we are paying the tax indirectly. That's called indirect tax. Therefore, GST, customs, etc., they are all called indirect taxes. So the proposals on direct taxes are like this. Apparently, this is where I want you people to give an appreciation to the government. See, in fact, immediately after the conclusion of the budget speech of Nirmala Sitharaman, some feedback in the social media, one feedback, questionnaire has come for me. Then inadvertently, I have rated the budget around 60 to 70%. I have given 70% score for the
Sir,
the government preferred not to disturb, not to give any subsidies or incentives or schemes or free subsidies to the public at large. They wanted to have a tough year, one more tough year with reference to the entire tax regime. So therefore, they did not give any good concessions. They have continued with the same old tax rates. Then they brought in an interesting concept. This is what they do. Then they say widening the tax. I told you the tax base has to get widened. The concept of updated return is something that they have brought in. Very interesting concept. This updated return concept, they have actually they spoke about one particular tax payment here. They spoke about the whether you have filed the return previously or not, or if you have missed to include any of the income in that particular return, there is an opportunity that is given to you, whereby you can file an updated return within 24 months from the end of the assessment year for which the income relates to. So, for example, if I have missed an income in financial year 2021 or 22-23, because it's going to be prospective clause, certain amendments they would be enforcing them retrospectively. Certain amendment they would be enforcing prospectively. So this is a prospective amendment that they have proposed to pass. So for example, 22-23, I have filed a return. I missed to include certain income. What is the recourse for me? Of course, all the time frames as far as the filing the revised return, everything is over. Now, what is it I should do? Or for that matter, I forgot to file return at all completely. So what is the recourse for me? Shall I? Am I open for the? Hello? Am I open for basically some kind of a scrutiny, or am I open for some kind of a raid for the income tax department? Generally not. They have given a provision there to file an updated return. This updated return they have brought in order to widen the tax base and also to actually improve their ease of living. For example, what is a great grave? What is a great mistake I have done? I have not murdered anybody after all. I forgot to file my income tax return. So therefore, they have given me an opportunity. I file it across. Of course, there is certain additional taxes to be paid thereon. Any updated return I file, they have given certain conditions thereon. They said 25% of the tax liability, total tax liability on that income that is going to be disclosed in the updated return, I need to pay as the additional income tax. This is the one kind of a provision that they have put in. Similarly, they also actually ensured that nobody would misutilize this particular provision, wherein I cannot really file an updated return in order to reduce my tax liability. This is another thing that the recent budget that has actually spoken about. Then something very actively spoken about. In fact, after 1st February, the Economic Times paper is kept on discussing only about this particular amendment that has been proposed in the budget. That is a virtual asset. They have defined a virtual asset. They have already brought in digital currency by the RBI, but digital currency they have demarked or delinked from that the virtual asset, whereby the cryptocurrency they have actually included in the virtual asset definition. And they said, if anybody is dealing with the virtual asset, that kind of a cryptocurrency or non-fungible token, etc., the gain you are supposed to pay 30% as the tax. That is a kind of an impression that the government has actually put in. At the same time, if there is any loss by virtue of selling a virtual asset, you are not entitled to carry forward the loss. That is the provision that they have put in. What is the intent of the government in saying all these things? Essentially, they wanted to bring some kind of a sanctity for the transaction that is happening. Whether they recognize the cryptocurrency at all or not, they brought some kind of a sanctity for the transaction that is taking place. Thereby, they are putting the tax net. Thereby, the tax net is getting widened by. Then, COVID-19 expenditure is another important aspect that the government is really concerned about. That is, the public at large are incurred to a lot of inconvenience by spending a lot of money from their pocket, from their employers' pocket, etc. So they said, by all means, any expenditure on COVID-19 is a permissible expenditure only, number one. In that context, now they have brought in some kind of a logical amendments to the Income Tax Act. You all know, and there are 5 heads under the Income Tax Act. My first set is salaries. So there is a provision called perquisite in the salaries. So any perquisite that is actually provided to an employee is taxable. So this perquisite, when it is taxable, if my employer is incurring medical expenditure on account of me, huge expenditure, if suddenly it comes and sits in my computation as a perquisite, I need to pay tax on that. So therefore, they have aptly amended section 17(2) and said very clearly they said, no, sir, it is not a taxable perquisite. Similarly, for some unfortunate reason, if the employee expires on account of a COVID, the family member is provided with some kind of a monetary support. And under section 56, which falls under the income from other sources, normally any income which is not falling under the heads of income from house property, income from capital gain, income from salaries, or income from business falls under the income from other sources. When I get 10 lakhs income from my employer on account of some COVID, on account of some family member getting diseased on account of COVID, then it gets attracted into the other sources. So what the government said is that up to 10 lakhs, even such kind of receipt also is not to be taxed under income from other sources. This is an interesting amendment that they have brought in from the COVID-19 perspective. Then another interesting, again, you can see here the broad basing where they wanted to increase the tax revenues by certain principled, logical, and moral ways only. There's nothing very immoral or illogical in these amendments there. Conversion of interest due into debenture or other instrument will not be treated as a payment of tax deduction for purpose. There is a section called section 43B in the Income Tax Act, which says that unless I pay interest to the institution, I cannot claim it as an expenditure in my income tax return. What the entities used to do, they used to reschedule, convert this interest into another loan, and that loan becomes a new loan. They said, no, this interest is deemed to have been paid. Therefore, you allow it as expenditure. Government said no. They said any conversion of the interest dues into loan is not treated as a payment. From the income tax perspective, accounting perspective, it's okay. From income tax perspective, they said it cannot be treated as a payment at all. So that kind of a provision they are put in. Then what the entities used to do, they instead of calling it as a loan, they started calling it as a debentures. Because after all, after the globalization, there are many financial instruments are been floating for the corporate. So they are calling it as a debenture. So debenture again, unless it is specifically mentioned in the act, so they cannot really tax any kind of a conversion of the accrued interest into the debenture as unpaid. So they have brought an amendment to this provision saying that if you are converting any interest into debentures, even that amounts to the interest is not deemed to have not been paid, and accordingly you cannot claim it as an expenditure. This is another thing. Then one more interesting aspect they have brought in as amendment, that is, no tax deduction will be permitted for expenses incurred on compounding any offense in or outside India. Now, another important tendency is that if have you filed an income tax return? I asked one of my friends. He said no. Then what? Kya hota bhai file karne mein? So you have to file. So what is the last date? There is some 30th November. So what happens if I pay after the 30th November? I will be asked to pay some interest. I will pay interest. That was some mindset. Sometimes maybe the situation might force you to delay the file compliance, or sometimes you may do it voluntarily. You may, out of your own practice, your own behavioral patterns, you may defer filing the income tax return in time. In all these cases, all compliances, if you don't do it in time, it has some price in the form of interest, in the form of penalty, etc., etc. Now, what the entity started doing is that such additional interest or additional penalties, they started claiming it as business expenditure because we did not get money from our customers. So we have delayed the filing. So because we delayed the filing, there is an interest levy. So therefore, that interest levy, I am claiming it as expenditure. Or such penalty, we are claiming it as an expenditure. Government has brought a clarification that such compounding any offense, whether it is in India or outside India, if you have incurred any expenditure, you cannot claim as it as an expenditure. That is one specific, amendment that they have brought in. Another interesting point, let me explain because of paucity of that. Because my objective is not to read out the entire finance bill. My objective is to give the basics so that you will be interested to go through the website that I have coined in the opening remarks of my presentation. And I want you people to read all these provisions verbatim, line by line, and infer with that of the memorandum explanation that is also given there on. So, important provision here is that source of the creditor has to be explained by the borrower. Very important, very important. You all know unexplained credits, if any, they are to be treated as income and they are to be taxed by the income tax authority. For example, I claim it that I got a credit from XYZ and I take it as a loan into my kitty. I know very well that is some kind of a dirty money. So they wanted the SSC to explain or convince the authorities what kind of source from which you got this money. Then I would happily say I got from some Malaya this particular money. Now the income tax going a step backward. They wanted the Malaya to prove the source from where he got the money so that he could fund this organization. So they wanted to ultimately prevent the dirty money flowing into the business houses. Therefore, it is the duty of the SSC to establish the source of the person who has actually lent the money. For example, I'm running a business. Okay, my business, I borrowed some loan from Krishnan, who is my good friend. Krishnan has given me some loan. Then I have to prove my income tax authorities what is the source for Krishnan to fund me. That is the kind of an amendment that they have brought in a way, in order to prevent the dirty money. It's a welcome proposition. Okay. Then, friends, they have given very good encouragement to startups. There is a section called Section 80 IAC, which talks about giving, tax 100% tax exemption for startups commencing after a particular date, but the entire commencement of the activity should conclude by 31st March 2022. In order to further encourage these startups, what the government did is that they have extended this date by one more year, that is up to 31st March 2020. That means an organization which is termed to be a startup, if they start their activity now, up till 31st March 2023, they are entitled for that facility of 100% tax exemption under Section 80 IAC. So this is not for the full period. They need to select any 3 years out of the 10 years period starting from the commencement of their business. This is another important amendment that has been actually brought in. There were certain other important amendments also, particularly in terms of Section 79 with reference to carry forward of losses, and this is very important because the government's call is to go for the divestment. So, there is a provision in the Income Tax Act, if an entity is changing its ownership, in order to carry forward the losses under Section 79 of the Income Tax Act, there is a provision which says that 51% of the ownership should be continued in the hands of the same person in whose hands the loss has been incurred for. Now, technically, it might become an impossible task. For example, Air India has been sold to Tatas recently. Now, the entire ownership has been transferred to Tatas. Now, if there is any loss for the Air India, if they are not allowed to carry forward, it's an issue for the Tatas. In order to address that, government has brought in a specific amendment to this, excluding, and in order to enable the strategic disinvestment and public sector enterprises selling and all. They said this 51% clause, whatever is the continuation of the shareholding pattern in the successor entity's hands, is also changed, amended to suit the divestment plan of the government of India. Similarly, even under the insolvency bankruptcy code that is actually enforced, in order to enable the successor to do a productive job, in order to enable the successor to enjoy the business losses to set off against his future incomes and all, they have also given a provision to this extent. Friends, these are some of the provisions. I would not say all the provisions. Some of the provisions that I could cover. Now, just another 2 to 3 minutes. Let us spend some time, because this year they have brought very few changes, few policy changes with reference to the indirect taxes. If you look at, they have the customs duty exemption they have given as steel scrap. Very important. Now, steel scrap, if you import, you would produce a lot of infrastructural items. This would go in terms of building up the infrastructure. Therefore, aptly they have reduced the customs duty on a steel scrap. Then they have also reduced the duty on certain inputs required for shrimp and aquaculture. In order to see, agriculture means not only kheti. There are some allied sectors like dairy, poultry, aquaculture, etc., are slowly coming and sitting along with agriculture as allied sectors. So, in order to promote the allied sector, because purely on agriculture, it is extremely difficult for a farmer to survive or to make good money. Therefore, they wanted the allied sectors to be encouraged for. So, they said shrimp aquaculture is being promoted for, whereby any inputs that are going to be consumed with the shrimp aquaculture organizations, the customs duty would be reduced for, so that it would cost less for the organization. Then I was telling you about the utility or utilization of the drones across the fields for the purpose of sprinkling the fertilizers and pesticides, and also for the purpose of doing the soil tests and other things. So these drones are to be combined exclusively for the purpose of social organizations. Of course, there would be some commercial element there. Some organization would come with a public-private partnership there. Some organization would come and assembling the drones as such. In order to enable them to be very cost-effective, they said the customs duty on camera lenses they wanted to reduce for another important point. And the significant change from the indirect tax front in the latest budget is, again, they wanted to control the kind of a non-compliance. They wanted to control the leakage aspect. Input tax credit, you all know what is input tax credit. For example, I sold, let us say I have sold this, let us say this mobile. This mobile, when I am selling for 1,000 rupees, I may have to pay 180 rupees as my tax liability. But to sell this mobile, I would have purchased all the components worth of around 600 rupees. And on 600 rupees, I would have already paid 18% tax. That 18% tax I am paying as input tax credit. That means roughly around 600 to 700. Around, if I were to pay 180 rupees as my tax, on the 600 rupees, 18%, about 54 rupees, I would have already got this money as my input tax credit. So I need to pay tax only on the value that I am adding. You remember your economics concept, land, labor, capital, organization. These are the 4 factors of productivity. Only whatever is my expense towards the 4 factors of productivity, I need to pay tax on that, because rest is only input. The input I already actually suffered the tax. So therefore, I can take it as a credit. Unfortunately, what is happening? This provision is heavily been misutilized. So therefore, government wants to put a lot of restrictions on this misutilization. Then they said, look, we cannot allow the input tax credit to be, carried forward for years and all. Or, for example, last year, if you have missed any document for the purpose of claiming input tax credit, you have time only up to 30th November of the succeeding year. Beyond 30th November, we will not allow the last year's document to be taken as the credit. Similarly, they have also given a stricter, what you call compliance, saying that, see, I am a supplier to Krishnan. So I supplied goods to him. I charged GST and I given a bill to him. And I need to pay that GST to the department so as to enable Krishnan to claim the credit. This is a kind of a built-in system that they have brought in through the amendments. Another important aspect is that if any organization is actually wrongfully utilizing the input tax credit, they need to reverse that. And while doing the reversal, they need to also pay tax or interest at the rate of nearly what we call 18% from that of the 1st July 2007. They brought this amendment with retrospective effect. I told you, certain amendments would be prospective, certain amendments would be retrospective. So these made retrospective because the GST has come into force. Assessments are going on now. Litigations are going on. So therefore, they wanted to strengthen the hands of the government. So they brought in this provision called 18% interest with retrospective effect has been brought in. These are the, I would say, some of the changes that the finance bill contemplated. So I made my effort in order to bring in the backdrop. That's why the topic or the title itself, our Prakash sir would appreciate perhaps. I set the title as not the budget proposal, it's outlook. Why the government has broadened the tax base? Is it because they wanted to collect as much as possible? No. Is it because they wanted to punish the industry? No. So therefore, my submission is that, this is the message generally I give wherever I talk of the budget. That is, we all need to look at it from the positive perspective. Therefore, you can really appreciate the effort of the government, so that don't simply blame the government because they have not given any pre-sops and all. So they're very cautious and very bold budget. Definitely, in the midst of the present political scenario, if some kind of a concession is not given to a particular segment, that sector is annoyed. So in spite of that kind of a risk, government has come out with such a bold budget. And the whole objective is they wanted to create demand and supply. Demand and supply. Now, with the kind of a spend of 7.5 lakh crores on the capital front, they wanted to first create an environment to supply for. When I am able to supply, in turn, I can get the demand be created for. In fact, these two, demand and supply, they go together. They are like twin-edged, sides of a blade. If I am cutting a paper with a blade, I am not sure, is it because of the demand or is it because of supply? Which side of the blade is actually been contemplated to cut the paper? I am not sure. They are like demand and supply. So the economy, if it has to grow, the economy, if it has to become a sustainable economy, both demand and supply should be on the rising momentums. So this is the kind of an approach that the government seems to be taking for. And to begin with, aptly, in order to bounce back from the COVID setback, government has put a lot of effort in order to put in good amount of money on infrastructure, on the capex, on the promotion of the MSME sector, on the productive linked incentive schemes, etc., etc. So that the entire, tomorrow the supply capabilities are established, capacity building up is happening. Any kind of demand comes in, they can do wonderful job. And this is a kind of a submission that I can make. There are very good. There are many provisions. I again strongly recommend to all of you to browse this website, indiabudget.gov.in, number one. And also without any this thing, you also look at that website, oecd.org. OECD, O for orange, E for elephant, C for cat, D for dog. OECD.org. Look at this. You will come to know where we are standing, and where you will come to know what is the urgency for this kind of a budget, what is the necessity for this kind of a budget. With these few things, I think I have exceeded the time. Nevertheless, maybe if Prakash sir permits, we can take up a couple of queries.
Yes, no sir. Issues. Yes, sir. Please.
And
please kindly take.
Otherwise, you can share my mail ID, sir. If anybody wants to send any mail also, they can send a mail to me.
Definitely.
So that also can do. This particular hand note, I will share it to you.
Sir, and one thing also, sir, one thing also, this actually we are going to upload this video on YouTube also, please.
Well,
so interesting. That they can have that, the presentation.
Very interesting, sir. Very interesting. Very interesting.
Anyway, any more queries? I think students can participate for a 3 minutes time.
Sir, good morning, sir.
Good morning.
I'm Dr. Sairani, a professor from ICBM. I just wanted to know the budget from women perspective. Are there any inputs for that? Just few points on that.
Can you come again, sir, madam? I could not hear properly.
Budget from the woman perspective. Just few lines on that.
Okay. Budget from the what is that the women? What is there in the for the women? That's what you wanted to understand. See, at least to my knowledge, there is nothing. See, the healthcare, the focus at the healthcare is the one thing that I actually have a lot of concern for the women in particular. And I am of the view that specifically for the women segment, and they have not given any kind of a focused development as such. It is all common to all. One important provision that I can actually correlate is that the COVID expenditure and the related grants that you get from the employer or from the relatives thereon to be exempted. It generally happens to the spouses. When somebody loses the husband, then the spouse is not really suffered or made to suffer for want of income tax on account of the support that she gets. So otherwise, at least nothing come to my mind. Let me go through the document once again. Maybe if something is there, I can share to you in a very detailed manner.
Sure, sir. Thank you so much.
That's not to be viewed as a negative side, but when I looked back at the ground realities, then the income earning person's life is lost. After all, we have been supporting the family members, mainly the spouse, with that of some kind of financial support. So therefore, government aptly considered to be exemption for that kind of a financial support to the family members. So that is one a sensible amendment that government has brought in.
Sir,
if you have any point, you can add, sir, because as I told you, I have taken only elementary points in my presentation, actually.
Yes, sir, I think you have covered elaborately. The first time is that you gave what is a budget economic survey. I mean, the finances about the government, how the government is also like a corporate. I mean, how they function it. So you gave all that statistics also for the collections and the payments. So our students have got a in-depth, at least a sort of you mentioned as a outlook. Definitely it is a outlook and a in-depth also. Sir, thanks a lot. And I request all our students, please unmute the mics and please give him a big hand because our speaker has covered a lot of points.
Thank you very much.
All of you. Great, sir. Great of you, and we look forward to you for in the future also to guide our students in the career planning in case of their employment jobs. And here I wanted to, sir, announce our student by name. His name is Shivat Durga Prasad. Is there? Hello, Shiv Prasad, sir. Shiv Prasad. Yeah, okay. Sir, actually, he got a job and because with our course help or the course content helped him, he got a job in PVR and PVR Company Limited in that as a executive accountant with a salary of 3 lakhs per annum. He was so happy to share, and he shared on Google feedback also. That I wanted to tell you. So help our students also, because you are the senior most professional in the costing and finance. We look forward to you for your guidance, and you help our students also, sir. Okay.
Sure, sir.
Thank you,
sir. I am with you, sir.
Thank
you for the opportunity, sir. I still remember
it's our
your
pleasure.
endeavor,
it's our pleasure. Thank you, sir.
Your focus for the accounting fraternity. I fully appreciate to you, sir. My regards to you, sir. And I thank all the listeners also. If there are any doubt, there is a simple mail ID, chat with CMA, CHAT chat with CMA. CMA stands for my profession. Chat with CMA at gmail.com. They can actually, maybe you can share along while they can actually shoot any of the doubts or anything. Even if they have not put the doubts in this forum, I would definitely try to address those concerns or the doubts through mail mechanism, sir.
Okay.
I can do all.
Thanks, sir. Thank you, sir. You take a lot of time, actually, more than 1 hour.
Right.
Okay, continuously speak. Nice of you.
No, my objective is to bring the total end to give the alpha to omega kind of conceptual presentation, so that the young minds understand in the right perspective.
Yes,
that's the only thing.
Yes. Nice of you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you, sir.
Good day. Happy Sunday. Take care of. Good.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Sir. Come on.